I'm Andrea Giles, and you're listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, episode number 95, Intimacy After Infidelity with Amanda Lauder. Hello, and welcome to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, where courageous women learn not only to heal from their spouse's betrayal, but to become the boldest, truest, most decisive, and confident versions of themselves ever. If you know there's more for you than the life you're currently living, but don't quite know how to get there, you are in the right place. Stick around to learn how to create a life that will knock your own socks off. Is it possible? It is, and I'm here to show you how. I'm your host, Andrea Giles. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode number 95. It's pretty fun to be creeping up to episode number 100. So fun. It's been a joy to watch this podcast grow, to meet with many of you, to hear from many of you. I love it. Thank you for being here. So today's guest is Amanda Lauder, who is a coach that deals with sexuality. She saw a need and saw that people's feelings around their own sexuality, some of the things that they've been taught, et cetera, were getting in the way of being able to enjoy fully this part of their lives. And this certainly is a piece that comes up around infidelity. So I had Amanda on. We had an amazing conversation all about intimacy, particularly sexual intimacy after infidelity and what that looks like, some of the things that come up, some of the things that are difficult. And I hope that you find it useful. Amanda is amazing, and I personally have learned a lot from her. So I hope that you enjoy her and enjoy this conversation. Before I turn it over to that conversation, I want to remind you that my doors are open right now to my next group, Noah 90 group. They're open now. We start on August 16th. Come on in. If this is something you've been thinking about, if it's something that you have been waiting for, don't talk yourself out of it. If you know that your time is now and that you're ready to move forward, ready to have the tools that you need to move forward, ready to have the support of other women, and to have my coaching and my skills and all the things that you will learn in there, come talk to me. You can find links to schedule a call with me on my Instagram. You can find it in the show notes from this today. You'll find it on my website, lots of different places where you can find it. Okay. But the easiest is going to be in the show notes that are linked to this episode. All right. Without further ado, turning the time over to the conversation with me and Amanda Lauder. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. We have been talking for a long time about doing this episode, and today's the day. I'm super excited to have Amanda Lauder on the podcast. She is a sex coach. Yes. Is that what you call yourself, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay. Sex coach. And I have been following Amanda myself for quite a while and have learned a ton from her podcast, from her website. Like, she has great resources, lots of good information. And I wanted to bring her on today to talk with you a little bit about sex and intimacy as it relates to infidelity. And I have some specific things that I want to ask her that I'm super excited to hear what she has to say. But first of all, Amanda, can you please tell us all about yourself, how you came to be a sex coach, a little bit about your life? Take it away.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Andrea. I'm so happy to be here and be able to share with your audience. So I was married to my first husband for 13 and a half years, and it was really rough almost the entire time. There was a lot of emotional abuse and other abuses that happened in our marriage, and I hated sex. I pretty much hated sex almost the entire time. I didn't understand my body. I didn't understand, how to have good sex. Like, he seemed to be enjoying things, but really it was just all about him and doing it whenever he wanted, or doing it, trying to put him off for as long as I could, and then doing it just to get him off my back. But after about 12 years of marriage, I was kind of desperate because, I'm a very religious person, and I consider God to be my partner in my marriage and in my life. And so I was praying all the time, trying to figure out what I needed to do to go forward in my marriage. And I had been praying about divorcing him pretty strongly from about year 5 on. At that point, things had gotten bad enough that I was like, I don't know that I want to keep doing this. And my answer was always, now is not the time. And you have more work to do. And I was like, what? Okay, tell me what work I need to do, because I'm going to do all the work so that I can get out of this marriage. And so at about year 12, so I've been praying about this for like 7 years at that point. I had the idea that I needed to work on my sexuality, because I figured, maybe if the sex got better, then our marriage would get better. And so that was really hard for me, because I carried a lot of shame about my sexuality, growing up in a very conservative religious home. And, the messages that I received in my family about sex and culture at large. I had a lot of shame about my sexuality. And so having to get over that shame first was really difficult. And then taking the time to really understand my body and explore and figure out what felt good for me. And so after 12 years, I finally had my first orgasm. I had bought a bunch of toys. And I was like, oh, okay, I could get on board with this. This actually is good. So the sex got better. The marriage was still crap.
So no orgasm for 12 years.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't understand my body, didn't understand I had a clitoris, didn't understand any of that. So I had to do all that. So finally had an orgasm, sex got better. The marriage was still bad. And after it was almost 13 years, my answer from God changed. And he said, now is the time. You've done your work. And so I started putting things into place to get divorced, and was divorced. That my answer changed in the spring, and then took me some time to figure things out and make sure I knew my rights. And then I went through with my divorce in the fall of 2011, after 13 and a half years of marriage. And so I met my second husband, my now husband. There's only going to be 2, just 6 weeks after my divorce was final. And we fell in love immediately and knew we wanted to get married. I mean, really within 24 hours of meeting each other. Like, it was really fast. And what's so interesting is those 8.5 years that I was married to that I was praying about divorcing my first husband were the exact 8 years that he was married to his first wife.
Wow.
And when they separated, that's when my answer changed.
Wow.
So it was very much
in
God's timing. And so he and I got married, and we had discussed sex before we got married and knew what we were in for and what we wanted. And both of us wanted a really great sexual relationship. And so we've both worked on that to have that. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Awesome. And we have had a beautiful and wonderful marriage and a great sexual relationship. So fast forward a little bit, I was considering going back to school to become a therapist. But I wanted to help women who had been through abuse and divorce and stuff like I had. And people were calling me all the time for divorce advice. And so I thought that was kind of the natural path to do that. Yep. But looking into it, it was going to take me like 8 years full time to do everything. Yep. And at that point, we had a blended family of 5 kids. And I was like, there's no way I could do this. It would take me, because I would not be able to go full time. And so it would take me even longer. And then a friend introduced me to life coaching. And I immediately knew that was what I needed to do. So I started my coaching business, helping women who are struggling in their marriage and contemplating divorce. I got certified as a life coach in the same school you did. And I realized after a while that most of these women were having problems with sex. And because it had been such an area that I had done so much work on myself, I had a lot of knowledge. And I ended up going on a girls' trip with a bunch of other coaches. And we rented a house and, we're sitting around and sex came up like it often does when we go on these girls trips. And by the end of the weekend, they were like, Amanda, you have to change your niche to sex because we have learned more from you in this weekend than we have in 15 to 20 years of marriage.
Wow.
And that was, again, really scary because, how could I talk about sex so openly? I grew up in a home where we did not talk about sex. And so talking about it very publicly was very scary. But the more I thought about it, the more I prayed about it, it felt like truth to me. It felt like I was meant to do and so what I was meant to do. And so I changed things and my business exploded and I've had a tremendous success. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to help so many women and marriages in this way, because it is truly life-changing work.
Amazing. Amazing. I will say you've helped me. Because
good.
Really, just in listening to your podcast and all the resources and things, I'm like, didn't know that. It's I will go show my husband things. Check this out. Look at this. Good. So it's good stuff. Okay. So as you know, my clientele are working through infidelity.
Yeah.
And there's been a breach of trust, often is around sexual things, right? Not always, often it is.
Yep.
And something that I hear a lot from clients is that they feel like they were just not sexually doing it for their spouses. And so they blame themselves for their spouse's actions. What do you think about that? Tell me what you think.
Well, I think there's always room for improvement, but anyone else's choices are never our fault. They always have the agency to choose. And, a lot of times sex is the cause of infidelity, but there's always choice and agency. And, your spouse who was unfaithful in that way chose that, and he could have made different choices, or she could have made different choices. So I think there's always work to be done, but I don't necessarily think you should blame yourself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So again, a lot of my clients, a lot of them grew up in homes that were very conservative, we don't talk about it. We don't discuss it. And so for the most part, they came into this place just by the way that they were raised, the language that they were used to hearing, and not really feeling like they had permission to explore it. And so they came by it naturally, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A feeling of embarrassment if they really lean into the things that they want, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So just in general, tell me how you have seen that kind of thinking affect marriages for both men and women.
Yeah, it wreaks havoc on marriages. I think it's traumatizing. I mean, we have different kinds of trauma, like the big T trauma and little T trauma. I think it's more on the little T trauma side most of the time. But it is very traumatizing to be told something that is so innate and inherent inside all of us is bad or wrong or makes you unworthy, or, just different things like that. So that when we have a disconnect inside of us, that this is I'm feeling these things, I'm thinking these things, and they're wrong, which makes me wrong, which makes me bad. Or, we get messages from, in our familial situations, in our religious situations, just cultural at large, that, men are the sexual ones and women are just there to accommodate, which is totally not true. Women are actually more sexual in many ways than men. We just are not given the permission. And sex has often been used by patriarchy to control women and exert power over women. So there's so much baggage that comes with it. And so when maybe you were told sex is good, but you have to wait until you get married. So bad. Okay, good. And we just don't make that shift. It takes a lot of work to change that mindset. And so, there's so much that plays into it. So the fact that, so many women don't like sex, or they do it just to be accommodating for their spouse, or it's just, something they have to check off their list, and they don't understand how it is for them and how it can be so life-giving for them and for their marriage, of course they have issues. That is so common and so normal. And it's not something that we talk about. And so they feel very isolated and alone and broken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that is one of my goals, is to help people like normalize all of this and to know that you are not broken.
Mm-hmm.
The system is broken. The way we talk about things is broken, but you are not broken. And the more that we can talk about it, the better off that we're all going to be. I always tell people, because people come and I don't want to talk about sex in front of other people, because I've done one-on-one coaching. I've also done group coaching like you're doing, but now I have a membership because I couldn't help as many people in just even group coaching as needed help. And so now I have this membership, and they're like, but I don't want to talk about sex in front of other people. And what I tell people is the same thing that's holding you back from talking about it is the same thing that's keeping you from actually having good sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's shame.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to get over the sexual shame.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So first of all, thank you. So good. I just, as you were talking, I was remembering specifically in my first marriage, how weird it was to just like you said, don't do it, stop, don't do it. And then go.
Go.
And I remember I was very, careful and strict with myself and had all the things. And I remember being like, wait a minute, what, and it just feeling so weird. It took a long time to even feel like I wasn't doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because I had been taught for so long that I was.
Right. And there's some women who are like, oh yeah, I like sex. Sex feels good. I'm orgasming, but I shouldn't like it too much.
Yes.
I shouldn't want it. I shouldn't crave it. So they shove it all down. So we get a whole mixture of different things just because of the messages that we received.
Yeah. Yes. So talk about shame. Let's circle back to that. It's interesting because the very last episode that I recorded was about shame. Mm-hmm. And so how does shame show up in sexual things with marriages personally?
Yeah. I mean, it shows up in so many ways. It shows up in no desire.
Okay.
It shows up in no orgasms.
Yeah.
It shows up in, a resistance to even thoughts and feelings. We have thoughts and feelings that are supposed to be there. But when you've been told your whole life that they're wrong and to control your thoughts, and, a lot of times, especially in conservative religions, we've been giving these metaphors of, if you think these things, you're going to go down the slippery slope, and that's going to lead you to hell. And and a lot of times we interpret that well, if my husband or my spouse is that way, then they're going to lead not only themselves, but take me down with them. So I have to control things. I have to be the gatekeeper to sex so that we don't go to hell because we're sexual beings. And what I believe is sex is sacred and it's beautiful and, should be shared between two people who, if not, depending on your religion, in mine, and unless you're married, but in some between two people who love each other. And outside of that, it can be harmful. But there's kind of a scale where we go to indulgent sexuality, where we're using sex outside of the bounds that have been set, or, indulging in it, we're being promiscuous, we're being unfaithful to our spouse, or, that can kind of lead into the indulgent part of sexuality. The other end of the spectrum is repression. Mm-hmm. And that's where most of us go because we don't want to go to the indulgent part. Yeah. But what we actually need is a healthy middle ground where we are sexual. We realize that we were created to be sexual beings. That's inherent in us. But how do we want to use that within our value system, within our integrity, where we're not being indulgent, but we're also not repressing? And so that shame often comes from both ends of the spectrum, where we're either being indulgent in it or we are completely repressing it and thinking we are somehow unworthy or bad or wrong. And instead of like, it is wrong, it becomes, I am wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I love that. Thank you. So with infidelity, first of all, a lot of my clients blame themselves for not being whatever, attractive enough, sexual enough, enticing enough, things like that. And so that's an issue. Another issue that I see a lot is many of my clients want to stay and struggle in trying to create a sexual relationship with their spouse, sexual intimacy with their spouse, partially from intrusive thoughts that come up around their partner, things about their partner. And then also almost like a guilt for wanting to be close to their spouse, even though their spouse betrayed their trust.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear from you what you would say to my clients about these things, like stepping into it where you are honoring yourself, but also honoring what you want for your relationship, things like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest things for sex is safety and freedom. Those are two of the biggest things that all of us need to have in order to experience great sex. And often after infidelity, that safety is missing. And so we're often looking outside of ourselves to create that safety. We're looking at like, well, as long as he or she, my spouse isn't being unfaithful anymore, then I can feel safe. Or, as long as they're not doing these things, then I can feel safe. And really that pointing that outside of yourself is never going to help you feel safe. And so it always has to come from within you. Can I feel safe because I know that I'm going to make the best decision for me in this moment, no matter what that is? That's how I feel safe. Whether he's being unfaithful or not, or making decisions or not, it comes down to me and for me making the decision. And that's how I can feel safe, is because it's within my control. And then the freedom to be able to express yourself. And if you don't have that freedom to make the choice to have sex, if you don't have the freedom to, express yourself in the way you want, then that can also inhibit things. The intrusive thoughts are actually really normal. Just normalize that. Like those things those will pop up. What do you want to do with it? That would be my question, is when that pops into your head, what do you want to do with that thought? Do you want to put energy and power behind that thought? Do you want to indulge in that thought and keep thinking it over and over and over? Or do you want to just notice that your brain is offering you that thought and decide that it's not helpful for you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably get a little bit of this. I get a lot of women in my program whose husbands have had issues with pornography.
Yep.
Unwanted pornography use. If you don't believe that pornography is a problem, then it's probably not a problem, right?
Yeah, right.
But if you believe it's a problem and it's happening, then it can, feel very betraying for that to happen. And a lot of times what will pop into these women's heads is that what their husband wants to do or what's happening is what they've seen in pornography. I would imagine if your spouse has had an affair, that, maybe what's happening, you're thinking, well, did he do this with her? What did he do with her? Right. But just notice that that's happening. But all of the things existed before pornography and before the affair. What do you want to stay present in that situation with your spouse and make it a good experience? Or do you want to, bring other people or other things into that situation, which usually isn't helpful when it can just be the two of you. So just noticing that, like, my brain keeps offering me these things. What do I want to do with them? What power do I want to give it or not? I think that's really helpful.
Yes. Thank you.
The guilt about having, sex with your spouse that has, been unfaithful, you always have a choice. And consent is huge. So if it's not an enthusiastic yes from you, don't do it. Don't do it. But if this is something that you really want for yourself, whether you think like it will be healing and connecting, or maybe it's just, the thought of losing your spouse to someone and you want to stay connected. As long as you're making that conscious choice, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to have sex, or you can choose not to have sex. But when you have to understand that that's your choice, and that's what's going to help you create that safety in yourself. And if you choose to do it, if it's made out of a conscious choice, if it's not made out of like, well, I have to give them more sex to keep them with me, or, doing that, then you're probably doing it for the right reasons. And there doesn't need to be any guilt. I don't think there needs to be guilt, even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But like, I think it can happen more easily if you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Something that I say all the time on my podcast is how infidelity can be a crisis in your marriage, crisis personally, that can be a springboard to immense personal growth.
Absolutely.
That it can spring you into going, I have to look at these things. I have the options are to, you can blame all day long and the jerk, he did this, he did that. And we can do that, but we end up not learning anything from it ourselves and not being able to really see ourselves in the context of our marriages. And I think that this piece of sexuality there's a lot of maturity. Like, as you were talking about the options, right, after infidelity, that you can still have that desire, you can still want the closeness, and you can still not be particularly thrilled with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can still not completely trust them and still trust yourself enough to have sex. Like, that safety piece is so huge.
Yep.
And I think that as you're talking, I was thinking about the immense maturity that it takes, the immense amount of maturity and development to go from a space of kind of the way that we are taught about things, of only, sex, yes, but only as a means for whatever, children, or to please your spouse, or whatever those narratives are. We each have our own, right?
Right.
To really a form, like you said, of self-expression, and even a mode of healing.
Absolutely.
And it can feel there's great vulnerability there, right? Mm-hmm. To open up to that and to allow yourself to heal in that way. Would you talk a little bit about how sex can be healing?
Yeah. Sex is so vulnerable. And sex exposes the deepest parts of us if we let it. It can also be very surface level and not. So this is where we talk more about intimacy, being known, like fully known in all aspects, and fully knowing your partner as well. When sex can be that, it can be very healing and intimate. Not to be, TMI, but I remember a time where my husband and I have been going through some really big struggles with some of our kids. And some of the times that we have when we are, making love and being intimate with each other are some of the most healing parts of that, because we feel loved and connected, and all of the hurt that we feel outside of the bedroom is healed within it because of that love that we have for each other. And when we can just be completely open and vulnerable with each other and say everything that needs to be said with no judgment, and just complete acceptance of each other, that is so healing. That is the deepest forms of love. And, when there is infidelity, there's so much hurt and heartache. But most of the time, the reason infidelity comes, and I know you know this, and I know your audience has probably heard this, but because someone feels broken or the relationship feels broken. And when you can start to see with truth the parts that are broken and work to heal those together, and that then a lot of that healing can come through sex, because you are being completely open and vulnerable and letting the other person see all of you, and you seeing every part of them and choosing to accept and love them.
Yep. Which is amazing and powerful and such a gift, right?
Yeah.
It's like a profound gift.
Yep.
Yes. So what about my clients who either ended up getting divorced or their spouses left them, sometimes for the other woman?
Yeah.
And they are left feeling, the hurt that comes from that and sexually unfulfilled. What would you say to them? Can they still develop their sexuality?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a friend who is also a coach that recently went through a divorce. And she was like, oh, we didn't have any problems with sex within our marriage. And so I'm good. And I'm like, but you still have a relationship with your own sexuality, whether you're married or not. So whether you're, before you're married or while you're married or after marriage or divorce or whatever, like your sexuality is yours. It is not legitimized in a marriage. And you have a relationship with it no matter where you are in your life. And your relationship with your sexuality is how you think about it and how you think about yourself with that as part of you. And that can be nourished and strengthened and developed even when you're on your own. And I would say, how you do that, you just have to look inside and decide what's within your value system.
Can you tell me more about that?
Are we going to go to masturbation?
Continue.
Like we were given these thoughts and feelings for a reason. And like, I think masturbation can be a wonderful way to love yourself and to develop your own sexuality when you're not in a relationship, or even when you are in a relationship and, whether there's different desire levels to help manage discrepancies, to help strengthen your relationship with yourself so that you can more fully share that with your spouse. So within my program, we work on what I call pleasure practices, which is learning to understand your body and how you experience pleasure on your own, creating safety and softness in your body so that you can share that with someone else. So I liken it to, like, we're big fans of basketball at our house. And my husband years ago sent me this video of Steph Curry. And he would stay after practice and just shoot 3-pointers. And like if I remember correctly, it was like he had to make 30 3-pointers in a row before he would leave.
Wow.
And so, he was training his body and his muscles to respond in any situation so that he could just make the shot no matter what. And I liken these pleasure practices to that. We are training our body to show up in any situation so that we can create safety in our body, pleasure in our body, and connection.
I love it.
And so I think, you can do that whether you're with a partner or not.
Thank you. That's so good. So good. Thank you. We are just about out of time. I want to ask you I know that you also, we have some crossover in some of the people that we work with. I know that you also have had people that have experienced infidelity, different breaches of trust.
Sure.
What's your best advice that you want to leave my listeners with about using sex as a tool to actually heal?
I think so much of it is healing within your own body so that you are capable of sharing it with someone else, whether, they've been unfaithful or not. So when you can create that healing and that safety within you and develop yourself, then you're going to be able to heal and create safety within that relationship as well. So it all starts with you.
Yep. It's an inside job.
Totally.
It's an inside job. And I love that. I think that we are so conditioned in every way to think of things as outside of us and as they pertain to us, right from the outside in.
Yep.
And just as everything else that my listeners hear me talk about week after week, it's all an inside job. It has to come from inside, and your sexuality is yours as well.
Yep.
And I think that there's just so much power in growing that piece of you, that very personal piece. And I wanted one more question for you. As you have developed your own sexuality, you talked about that time in your first marriage when you decided that was something that needed to be developed. Yeah. What has changed for you personally? Like, I know you are married to somebody else, but like you personally, what has changed for you because you had the courage to develop that part of yourself?
Well, I always say when the sex gets better, everything gets better.
Yeah.
So all of us were born to have this energy, this eros energy, which a lot of times we equate it with eroticism and sex, but really eros energy is just life-giving energy. It's where creativity comes from. It's where we just have a zest for life. And so many of us spend so much time repressing our sexuality that it takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that, because it's innate within us. So when we can open up that space for our sexuality to exist and flourish, that eros energy comes back and we have more energy for everything in our life, everything that you want. And I see women who are trying to get that back, that they feel very like unfulfilled and stagnant, and they just don't know what to do with their life. And so, they have another baby or they, try to do a hobby or like a side gig or start a business, or they, go train for a marathon or, something like that. What they're searching for is that eros energy again. And they might get glimpses of it with those things. And if you ask them, most of them would say, "Oh no, it's not about sex." I'm like, "Oh, but it is." when you can develop that, I mean, you'll have the energy for the marathon, you'll have the energy for the business, you'll have the energy for more children, but you have so much more because it's about what you were made for, and it's inside of you. So when the sex gets better, everything gets better.
I love that. So like you said at the beginning, something about it being life-giving, and that I love your explanation there at the end of that it is the energizer to light up all the other areas of your life.
It really
perfect. Does. Well, thank you so much. How can my listeners find you and learn more from you? I know they will want to. I know they're going to be looking for you.
So my podcast is called Sex for Saints. It's, for conservative Christian women, although I have many people, I have men, I have people who are not conservative and not Christian listening.
Yes.
So, but that's just kind of my background and where I come from. My website is amandalauder.com. Louder is Louder. I'm loud. It's really easy to remember.
I love it.
And my social media, Instagram and Facebook, is Amanda Lauder Coaching.
Okay, perfect. And all of those things will be linked in my show notes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. And I know that my people will love hearing from you and learning from you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast. If you would like to be kept in the know about upcoming free classes, new podcast episodes, and other ways of working with me, go subscribe to my weekly email. You can subscribe at andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. Again, it's andreagiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. I will see you next time.